All right. Welcome, friends. Welcome back. My name is Rasputin, aka Raspupu, and this is another chapter in the diary of a mobile player. Today's content is going to be a little bit different. I was recently watching Predcast. Shout out to the guys over at Predcast, Bearded Wolverine, F6, Pinzo, Windu the Mace, Joe yours truly. This episode, I believe, is episode 42. They had two guests. They had Crashy and they had Gestro TV. Again, guys, if you like my video, you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment. Would love to have an interaction with you guys. So normally I don't really, I was gonna let it go, but because I care so much about Predecessor, as much as I cared about Paragon, I think that misinformation is something that needs to be addressed. And I was looking for F6 or Justro or Bearded to address the misinformation that Crashy and Pinzo were talking, but I didn't. Maybe they didn't know. Maybe they were ignorant of it. But yeah, I just wanted to address this really quickly. So Crashy goes on to talk about melee carries, and considering that I've played League of Legends since 2014, played other MOBAs, Gigantic, Heroes of the Storm, um, just been playing MOBAs for a while, playing games for a while. I just wanted to address it really quickly so that it gets out there into the community that there is something called a melee carry and they do serve a purpose. All right, so let's get into this video. Let's get into this clip.
I've always been like really confused by the notion of a melee carry. Like, to me, that just makes no sense. Like,
I'm just glad
melee...
someone else also
okay,
thinks
I
that,
have
that makes no sense.
I've thought this for years. Like, melee carries don't exist; those are assassins. Like,
correct.
It doesn't make any sense. That's like saying you have a ranged tank, which I've only ever seen pulled off like a couple of times in MOBAs, and they're never like meta because it's super weird. So it's like, I don't know. Like I just think she's an assassin. So to me, she's gonna be like, you can. It's like when people were playing Feng Mao mid. Like, yeah, you can pull it off if you really want to. Maybe she's super crazy and it works, but she's probably gonna be an off lane jungle. Like, I think it makes the most sense.
Yeah, I definitely choose off lane jungle.
Carriers.
Yeah.
All right. So Crashy just said he doesn't think that there's anything such as a melee carry. A melee carry is really an assassin. Pinzo agreed, and nobody really pushed back or had any counter argument. So this is the pushback that I would give. And if I was in the chat at the time, I would try, but I'm not that great of a typer. So, let me subscribe. Subscribe. There we go. Love. And this is in no way any hate, because I actually love the Predcast. I appreciate all the guys that make content. Pinzo, Crashy, Joe yours truly, everybody that makes content for Predecessor. I want to see the game do well. I was also one of those people who was devastated when Paragon shut down. But we have to address this. Okay, so melee carries. So Dignitas is an organization that has been in the MOBA space, I believe, since its inception, or not too long after the inception of League of Legends. There was, I don't know if there still is, but I know there was a Team Dignitas, LEC team. They had a North American LEC team, but I don't know I don't think they still do. Not too sure. I can't remember. I haven't kept up with it for a while. But somebody wrote an article. They said melee carries, look at champion design. Today we'll be taking a look at melee carries, how they function, what makes them work, and why Aatrox may need changes. All right, Aatrox is this guy over here on the far right. He's top lane melee carry. So, just to be clear, what I'm disagreeing with Crashy with is not that a melee carry should be in the dual lane. No, it has worked, and I'll talk about it later on in a little bit. But the reality is that melee carries they do exist. Most of them are generally played in the jungle or in the top lane, some in the mid lane, but they do exist, and they're not assassins. So, as you see highlighted here, it says a melee carry. Can I make this bigger? No, I can't. A melee carry is a champion that heavily relies on auto-attacking at a short range, and while this is not their only form of damage, it is their main source of damage, such as Tryndamere, Master Yi, and Yasuo. Just a brief overview. Tryndamere is a top laner. He has crit built into it. This is League of Legends now. Tryndamere is a League of Legends champion. He's a top laner, kind of jungler, but mainly a top laner. He has crit built into his kit. He has a critical strike in his kit. That's part of his passive. He has an invincibility ultimate. He has healing. His Q abilities to heal, based off of his bloodlust. Master Yi is a jungler, primarily used in the jungle, but he's also a top laner sometimes. He is the quintessential melee carry. They say it here. They say Master Yi may be the epitome of a melee carry if there ever was one. Since Master Yi's early gameplay, he has been about a few things: chasing people down, cutting people down, and much of Master Yi's kit lends to this. Like many melee carry, Master Yi needs to scale well into the game, similar to how an ADC must scale as they accumulate gold and levels. Alright? Master Yi has the invincibility frames where his Q allows him to do a multiple strike. So for those of you who don't know, the new Serath Q is the Master Yi Q. So Master Yi from League of Legends Q is Serath's Q for Predecessor. Right? Irelia, Jax, each of them, and Yasuo. Yasuo is basically, I think, the most well-rounded melee carry. I wouldn't say of all time. I don't know if any other game has because he squares into crit. He has a dash, but it's situational. He has a wind wall that blocks projectiles. And he has an empowered Q. His empowered Q is a strike, and on his Q3, basically the third iteration of his Q, he can throw out what's that thing? A whirlwind, a twister. I don't know the real name of it, but yeah, basically a twister, a whirlwind, kind of like the character from Samurai Showdown, and he knocks you up with it. Or that can be combined with his E ability, and he can dash into you and knock you up. And then his ultimate is based off of knockups. So I think he's probably the quintessential melee carry. I say all this to say, as was pointed out here, melee carries are champions that heavily rely on auto-attacking, right? They heavily rely on auto-attacking. Whereas assassins have high damage skills, right? High damage skills and ability or passive that negates or helps negate damage, right? And they generally focus on 1v1 engagements and not AoE. And that's pretty much the difference between assassins and melee carries. See, a melee carry could go 1v5. Late game, a melee carry can go 1v5, just like a range carry can go 1v5. The difference is, if we're going to use Serath and, let's use Serath and Feng Mao. Alright, these are my two examples. I get that Crashy never played original Paragon, so he doesn't understand the difference. But, so Serath and Feng Mao both use auto attacks, but the difference was original Serath, and I think they're going to do the same with this iteration of Serath that's dropping on Tuesday the 12th, is that original Serath was, her attack speed was super slow. Like she bonk. So what that did, it forced you to build not only crit, but also it forced you to build attack speed. You couldn't build attack speed and be tanky at the same time. If you're going to build attack speed, and in most MOBAs, and it's the same thing for Predecessor, you can't build attack speed and be tanky. You either build attack speed or you build tanky. The only one champion that gets away with it somewhat is Chimera, because he can build tanky because his kit has attack speed in it, right? I think it's his Q or is it Q? Is his Q or is E? One of his abilities allows him to do that attack speed buff, right? But generally, melee carries do not start off with attack speed. They start off very slow in the early game, and because they get levels, and more so because they get items, they scale into the late game and they become 1v5 and 1v9 monsters. The difference with assassins, the minute they hit level 6, generally, they can blow up a squishy target, whereas a melee carry can blow up everybody mid to late game. The downside of it, as they said here, is that they can be squishy, but they all have an ability that allows them to survive melee battles. So, would that be viable in Paragon? Not Paragon, I'm sorry, Predecessor. I keep saying Paragon. Yes, the reason why I think melee carries are necessary is because, let's go over here. Champion classes. Right. So, this is I'll put all the links to all the stuff that I'm using here. I'll put all these links in the description. But so this is the wheel of counterplay, right? Can I make this bigger? Yes, I can make this bigger. Good. All right. So this is the wheel of counterplay. You have gap closers, you have bursts, you have kiting, you have sustained damage tankiness, and you have somewhere in that you have utility, right? The problem right now with Predecessor is that there isn't a lot of kiting. There isn't really, maybe with the exception of Kira, maybe. There isn't a lot of kiting. Yes, you have flash and everybody has flash, but with Predecessor right now, squishies, especially carries, not so much like a Countess or whatever, you can outplay, but carries can't really kite tanks and what's his names? Carries cannot kite tanks and fighters. If a Chimera gets onto you, if a Steel, a Richter, like the only person that you could really kite so much is a Richter if he misses his hook. But Crunch with a double dash, Steel with his dash, his long dash, Chimera with his leap, Greystone with his leap, Zaros with his dash and his move speed. They all gap close on you. So kiting in Predecessor is pretty non-existent. Especially if you play solo. If you play in a team and you play with 5 people and your team is committed to pocketing, what we call preserving or saving or using all their abilities to peel for the carry, then yeah, a carry can kite. But left to their own, a carry really cannot kite, right? Because they can't kite, sustain damage, which is what carries do, they sustain a lot of damage, is something that is needed to combat tankiness. And the real issue with Predecessor right now, what a lot of people would say, is that tankiness is running rampant. You have a Steel, a Crunch, and a Richter on the other team, or a Grux. I forgot Grux. Grux also has a kind of a gap close because he not only has a dash, which is short, but he has a long range pull. So even though he might not dash to you, he could pull you into him. Let's not forget the assassins. But anyway, with the tankiness and the gap closers, tankiness and gap closers run rampant in Predecessor right now. Followed by burst damage. Kiting is non-existent, and sustained damage is pretty much non-existent. That's why Twin Blast right now is one of the, I guess, highest picked and most used carries, because his burst damage is higher than his sustained damage. Like, Twin Blast can burst you down quickly, right? So you need a melee carry like Serath that can kite and has sustained damage. So, based on this wheel, melee carries are necessary. Who's that? Not now. Melee carries are necessary, right? I personally feel that I think we need more melee carries. What does that equate to, and why is a melee carry not an assassin? Going back to my original point. So we're going to use Serath and Feng Mao, right? Serath has sustained damage based on her kit. She has the multi-hit. She has the leap. She has the ability to debuff and buff herself while debuffing her enemies. She also has the slow. Feng Mao has burst abilities. He dashes in, does damage with his dash, does damage with his Q, maybe hit you twice, and ult you because he has an execute, right? That is burst damage. He excels at burst damage. You can't really build correctly. You can't really sustain fight. You can't fight for long with Feng Mao because he will get blown up. He will die. He won't be able to survive. He won't be able to sustain himself. But Serath, on the other hand, has a sustain. She has self-peel in her ability to fly up and fly away. She has the ability to engage or disengage because while she's in the I forgot the word escapes me, the animation of her Q, while she's doing the multi-hit, she's invulnerable. She can't be hit. So imagine a steal, and I think they showed this in the Serath reveal trailer. Matter of fact, let's look that up. Serath reveal trailer. Let's go YouTube. Serath. Predecessor. Right? Hero overview, right? So let's look at this. Let's analyze it. Oh, my favorite left-handed carry. Oh my god.
My wings guide me.
Oh my gosh.
The fallen angel is back with a vengeance, ascending the murky darkness to smite evil in her search for justice. Serath is a hard-hitting celestial warrior, preferring to roam the jungle and use her mobility to facilitate the perfect gank.
Yeah, her Q is literally a Master Yi's Q, which is cool. I think it's actually better than her original Q, because her original Q is she just stood there and then she attacked in an area and then she came back to where she stood. So if you were smart, you would just go to where she was, like where her body was standing, and just wait for her to come out of Q, and then that's it. Whereas with this is like you can probably control, I think the intricacies of it, like Master Yi will probably control where you can end up, which champion you end up with, which is actually dope.
As angelic and virtuous as she may seem though, Serath hides a ferocious dark side that takes over with every foe she slays, transforming this seraphic soldier into a flaming warrior of malevolent might. Her primary ability is Heaven's Fury.
Right, so that's her ability that not only can be used for damage, but can also be used to dodge abilities. So,
where Serath vanishes and unleashes a barrage of 5 attacks to enemies in the area, applying on-hit effects and reappearing at her initial target's location. During this attack, Serath becomes immune to crowd control, so it's perfect for dodging key abilities or closing the gap between her and her target. Serath's secondary ability, Ascend, has her fly up above the battlefield and target an area below, before crashing into the ground, dealing damage to all enemies in the vicinity. She can use this as a way to chase down targets, disengage from fights, or tackle higher or challenging terrain on the field to make a quick escape. Chastise is Serath's alternate ability, propelling her wings in front of her with devastating force. Successfully hitting a target will slow them for a short period, giving her ample time to get out of a tricky situation or go in for the kill. This ability...
See, so she has Chastise, which is a slow, which is self-peel. She has, what's the other ability? Sorry. She has Ascend, which is also self-peel, but can also be engaged. And she has, what's the Heaven's Fury. So Heaven's Fury, Chastise, those are all 3 abilities that can A, do damage, but also B, provide peel.
Also resets the cooldown of her basic attack, meaning she can chain these together for some serious burst damage. Her passive ability is Fallen Grace, where remembrances of slain enemy heroes are left behind for her to consume. When Serath steps through the visage of a hero she's killed, her basic ability cooldowns will reduce, and her ultimate ability Heresy will automatically activate free of charge.
Yeah, I think that's a little broken. I'm not gonna lie to you. The fact that if she, even before level 6, if she gets a kill, she can use Heresy. Oh, I think that's a little broken. I'm not gonna lie to you, but hey.
This can even happen at levels 1 to 5 with a slightly reduced effect. Heresy is Serath's ultimate ability, where she succumbs to the darkness within her heart, dealing burning damage and significantly increasing her movement and attack speed. While Heresy is active, Serath's basic attacks and Heaven's Fury ability will apply a burn effect on enemy targets, racking up further damage over time as she burns her foes to the ground.
My question is, does it do a debuff though? Because original Serath, her Heresy gave you a debuff, so it made the it made your enemies do less damage. She had an area of effect debuff, which was wild. But anyway.
Want to step it up even more? Try building into
Alright, we're not gonna go into what to build, but yeah. So that's the difference. That's the difference between a melee carry and an assassin. Hopefully this has cleared up any questions anybody has had. Please feel free to reach out. Please like and subscribe if you like my videos. Please comment if you like it. If you don't like it, want to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful day.